Welcome to this explainer. We're diving straight into an absolutely incredible true story today. We are tracking the life of a woman who defied literally every single boundary of her time. We're talking boundaries of slavery, of race, gender, and social class, to completely alter the course of history. And the wild thing? She didn't do it by commanding armies or passing sweeping political legislation. No, she did it through the quiet, revolutionary power of a classroom. So right off the bat, we're hit with this massive central paradox. Think about it. How does a woman who is legally treated as property become an international pioneer? I mean, she didn't start with wealth, she had zero political influence, and she obviously didn't even have her basic freedom. She was born enslaved. Yet, as we're going to see, she crosses an entire ocean to shape a completely new generation of minds. It's just a jaw-dropping transformation.
To put that into perspective, the sheer contrast between where she started and her ultimate legacy is staggering. Born around 1798 into slavery in Princeton, New Jersey, her future was heavily restricted, completely controlled by others. Yet, she ultimately becomes a pioneer educator all the way in Hawaii. How she bridged the gap between those two completely different worlds is an absolute masterclass in determination. Let's dig into exactly how she pulled that off.
Section 1. The Paradox of Her Beginning. Okay, so Betsey was enslaved by the Ashbel Green family. He was actually a really prominent Presbyterian minister and the president of what we now know as Princeton University. In that world, educating enslaved people was, well, usually heavily discouraged or just outright banned. Yet somehow, against all odds, Betsey received an education, and it would completely transform her entire life. She learned to read, she dove incredibly deep into Christian instruction, but here's what makes Betsey so special. She wasn't content just learning for herself. That education sparked this radical desire to teach others. Remember, this is a time when society pretty much believed education belonged exclusively to white men of privilege. Betsey was preparing for a very different future.
Section 2. Breaking Boundaries and Crossing Oceans.
Betsey's Christian faith fueled this immense desire to do overseas missionary work. But you can imagine, this created a massive dilemma for American missionary organizations back then. They were forced to ask, could a black woman actually be sent as a missionary? They hesitated. They really weren't sure if they were willing to recognize African Americans on equal terms with their white workers. Betsey was asking them to imagine something totally unprecedented.
But her sheer, undeniable determination forced them to rethink those rigid 19th century assumptions. She manages to get connected with the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions, and right before she leaves America, something incredibly profound happens. Betsey is manumitted. She gets her freedom. This means her upcoming travel wasn't just geographical, right? It was a deeply personal journey from being enslaved to a life of self-determined service. She was heading out not as someone's property, but as a free woman, a teacher.
November 1822. That's when she takes that monumental step, sailing out of New Haven, Connecticut. Just pause and think about the sheer bravery required here. Travel by sailing ship back then was incredibly slow. Actually, slow doesn't even cover it. It was downright dangerous. The Pacific Ocean is enormous. We're talking months on the open water, leaving behind literally everything familiar in New Jersey to step into a completely alien environment on the other side of the planet.
Section 3. The Classroom as a Mission Field.
When she finally arrives in 1823, Hawaiian society is going through some massive transformations. Traditional structures are shifting, and suddenly there's this huge, booming demand for education. Betsey becomes really closely associated with Lahaina, which is a major center over on the island of Maui. And right there, she establishes a truly groundbreaking school. Her classroom basically becomes her mission field. She takes this entirely pioneering approach where she blends reading, writing, practical knowledge, and Christianity all together in one vibrant space.
And this is where Betsey really breaks the mold. You see, a lot of missionary teachers at the time restricted their efforts entirely to the kids of other missionaries, staying safely within their little settlements. Betsey? She said absolutely not. She refused those limits. She pushed far beyond those immediate settlements to teach ordinary Hawaiians, adults, children, it didn't matter. She especially focused on people from historically excluded social backgrounds because she fundamentally believed, to her core, that education was for absolutely everyone.
For Betsey, these two things, teaching faith and teaching literacy, went completely hand in hand. During this specific period, the Hawaiian language was just being reduced to written form, so literacy was exploding. Hawaiians were super eager to read the Bible and other materials so they could participate more fully in their rapidly changing world. And Betsey was right there at the very center of this educational revolution, handing people the practical, everyday tools they needed to thrive.
Section 4. A different kind of hero. Seriously, think about how real historical change actually happens. Betsey Stockton didn't build a massive towering institution with her name on it. Her influence came through the cascading effects of quiet history. It works like a chain reaction. One child learned to read. One adult learned to write. One student learned the Bible. One family gained access to education. And then one community gained a teacher. And then all of those people went out and influenced others. That is the reality of profound historical change. It rarely happens in a single dramatic flash. It happens through thousands of small, faithfully repeated acts of teaching and giving.
Now, eventually, Betsey heads back to the United States, but her calling doesn't stop. If anything, it expands. Her entire life became this incredible bridge between two worlds. She continued her educational work right back in America, cementing her status as an early pioneer of African American missions. Decades, literally decades, before the modern missionary movement began sending large numbers of African American women overseas.
When you step back and look at the total arc of her life, the sequence is just breathtaking. Slave, free woman, student, teacher, missionary, pioneer, educator. Wow. Every single step powerfully contradicts the circumstances of the one right before it. She was born without freedom, so she went out and gained it. She was restricted by her race, so she crossed massive geographical and cultural boundaries. She spent her entire life giving others the very thing that had initially been denied to her.
Let's anchor this incredible journey in time for a second, because it reveals something really profound. Born around 1798, sails in 1822, teaches throughout the 1820s, and she passes away in 1865. By the time of her death, the very institution of slavery she had been born into was finally being abolished in the United States. The world was changing, and Betsey Stockton wasn't just a passenger surviving that changing world. She was actively behind the wheel, helping to change it.
It perfectly sums up her ultimate triumph, doesn't it? The girl who had been denied freedom became a woman who opened doors of opportunity for others. She could have so easily kept her hard-won education entirely to herself. No one would have blamed her. Instead, she gave it all away. She used the very tools she was once forbidden to have, just to help others discover their own futures.
So here's the big takeaway for us. If passing knowledge to the next generation really is the most powerful way to change history, and I think Betsey Stockton clearly proved that it is, what doors of opportunity can you open for someone else today? Her story is this beautiful reminder that you do not need wealth or immense political power to leave a legacy. You just need the willingness to share what you know. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep sharing, and I will see you next time.